Hello, another Natives podcast. Harry MacArthur here, another exciting one here. I got Bob Thornton with me, and I have a friend here, Kevin Hutchinson, and a very smart man, and I'm lucky that I cornered him into coming on here because I'm anxious to hear his words of wisdom on AI.
I'm here for the T-shirt, by the way.
I got the T-shirt, but I'm an idiot with AI, and I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm just a burger flipper, so I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and we're going to get this started.
All right. Welcome, Kevin.
Yeah.
This is something Seth and I have definitely been looking forward to. Not that Harry hasn't, but I've gone down the rabbit hole of AI early on and often, and love to find somebody that is an expert. So if you want to start,
a strong word.
Okay, all right.
Don't set that bar too high.
Well, an expert is someone that's from more than 25 miles away,
okay.
right?
All right, good.
So we'll stick with the expert. But if you want to just start off, give us a little bit of your background, where you grew up, family, and all of that, and then let's find out about AI.
Yeah. Well, obviously with the hat that I'm wearing, Oklahoma City Thunder are in the playoffs. So born and raised in Oklahoma, went to University of Oklahoma, graduated, worked for IBM for 10 years in a variety of different positions. Then went to work for Oracle. We were chatting about that before the broadcast. And had a good time there. Then decided healthcare was kind of my thing. I saw a whole green field in healthcare of things that we could do to automate. Everything was paper-based and still paper charts and everything else. So I went to work for a hospital association, ran their IT investments, where we made early investments in an early-stage company called Vizient. And one of the companies that we invested in was an early-stage electronic medical record company. Probably 5,000 physicians in all of the United States had electronic medical records back then. This is in the mid-'90s. And so I went with that company. We took it public. We bought another company called Medscape.com. We ended up selling Medicalogic, which was the EMR company, to GE, which became Centricity, their product. And then we sold Medscape to WebMD, which is still Medscape today. And I went on a little bit of hiatus after that and said, all right, what else can we do in healthcare? And one of the struggles we had with getting medical record software adopted was it was just a documentation system, and doctors hated it because it took too long to document. They don't want to type and everything else. So we had an idea to create a company that would work with medical record software and with pharmacies. So we connected all of the pharmacies in the U.S. to all of the electronic medical records in the U.S. And so all the prescriptions that now go to the pharmacy electronically go through the network that my team built. So we took it from launching one prescription that went electronically in Rhode Island to now there's billions of prescriptions that go every year through the network, and it's called Surescripts, and it was a lot of fun to build.
Wow.
But then moved on to another one, and then moved on to a company that worked on gaps in care for helping patients know that they're due for a test and reminders of getting back into the doctor for certain tests, care coordination, and things like that. I was advisor to President Bush for a little while on the build out of the Health Information Network framework about interoperability. And then I moved over, and the Obama administration asked me to work with the Standards Committee to certify all electronic medical records for federal government. So I did that for a little while. That was not my day job. My day job at the time was still building Surescripts, which was a lot of fun. And so then now I'm an advisor to a private equity firm in New York called Arsenal Capital. And I'm an interim CEO of a revenue cycle management company in healthcare called Eon Health. So, and I'm chair of the board of another company in Denver called Eon Health, where we focus on diagnosis of cancer patients. And that's an AI-based company, as well as Notion uses a lot of AI tools and techniques. So that's kind of me.
Wow. That's in his spare time.
Yeah. I know. My wife says, are you ever going to retire? And I'm like, I am retired. This is what I do.
My dad always said, if you do what you love, you never have to go to work. And you have this radiant smile. Like you're doing what you love.
I do. I love technology.
So cool.
Yeah. I love change. I love finding ways to improve things. And that's why I think the conversation we're going to have today about AI is actually right in the heart. I've ridden every wave. I rode the wave from mainframes at IBM to personal computers coming out to the internet coming out, to going from client server software to software in the cloud, and to the .com strategies, and all the way now into AI. So I've been on each one of those waves, and this is going to be my last wave, is the AI wave.
You say that.
Yeah.
I was going to say until the next one comes.
I don't know what'll come next, but it'll be fun.
Harry knows. Harry's a surfer. You're always watching. You're always watching that horizon for the next wave.
Right.
That's
It's so true. It's
so
very
cool.
true.
And we had George Conradis on early on the show, and we're going to have him back on now that we actually have cameras. But you are son-in-law?
Son-in-law, yes.
So there's a brain pool for you between Kevin and I'm not sure which one's smarter, but
definitely George.
Is
definitely,
it?
yeah. I've learned a lot from George over the years. Yeah,
Now-
I've been blessed.
So you worked? Did you work
imagine.
at IBM when George was still there, or was he gone?
I was. We overlapped probably 8 of the 10 years I was there. Of course, he was way up there. I was in the region somewhere, and he was running the United States at the time. He ran Japan before that, and then he ran the U.S. And so I remember when I met his daughter, and I didn't know her last name. And so I met her through a friend of ours in Arizona. She was at IBM at the time as well. And then he told me her last name, and I'm like, isn't there a guy that works somewhere way up in there? And she's like, yeah, he runs the United States, and that's my dad. And I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't going to work out. But it did.
And here you are.
And here I am.
How many years later?
Yeah, 30 years later.
Wow.
We
Yeah,
celebrate our 30th anniversary coming up in June. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have known that George was running the United States for IBM because he was such a humble guy. Harry, it was like pulling teeth for Harry to get the story. He'd say, "Well, what about Patsy? Can you tell us about?"
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What about working on the internet?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he's very good at that.
So tell us about your AI find connection. How early you got involved?
Yeah. So, there's a misnomer in the industry that like AI is new, because it's not. It's been around for a very long time, but just used in very specialized sectors. So large language models have been around for a while. Originally, it was machine learning. So machine learning is when you write algorithms that learn off of results, right? So you write an algorithm and it learns something, and it can change the algorithm because it's learning certain things about what it's supposed to do. That's very basic machine learning AI, right? Then it evolved in these large language models where those same algorithms start learning off of bigger data sets. So they learn even more about certain things. And that's kind of generative AI became the first thing that consumers started using. So that's the ChatGPTs of the world that people like to log into. And people start using them for search. They're actually, they tell you don't just use AI for search, but it's a great search engine. Google is picking up the speed on what they're doing, but their search engine their traffic is starting to get really hurt because you go and you do a search on Google and you get a bunch of websites and links and you have to go through things versus actually asking a question and getting an answer with the sources that you can then go into. So generative AI is just content, which is all search engines are, like Google and others, right? It's just I'm looking for content. And that's become enormously popular with people. And so even, I won't say who it is, but one of my relatives actually calls ChatGPT her boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, because ChatGPT has learned all about her and likes her and gives her good advice. And you're like, be careful. It's not there for emotional support, but it can be, I guess, because they trained it actually to start talking nicer to people, specifically to get you more kind of hooked
Involved.
Into it. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mention that because I have a friend, and he went through a horrendous breakup, emotionally destroyed him, and his counselor is AI.
Yeah.
And he does not go a day without checking in with his counselor, and that's how he refers to. And this is a really bright guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not a person, Right. Oh, but it gives, she gives me such great advice, and I go to her for everything, and I'm like, it's not a person.
Yeah. Like, even if it was a person, right, the thing you should do is always get another piece of advice from someone else, just to make sure that you're not getting bad advice,
There
just
you
like
go.
a person would, right? So don't just trust everything that's given to you. Find another source of that same advice.
And that's one thing. As simple as I am, I've noticed I catch it in I catch AI in mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
And what I love is when I say this is not correct, it says great catch,
Yeah.
like it's rewarded. You know, like
Yeah.
I was testing you. Great catch, Bob.
Yeah, you're helping me learn. Yeah. But you know, generative AI, if you think about, that's the kind of the first uses of it, right? Now we're going to talk about agentic AI in a minute that really gets into task. And then there's general artificial intelligence, which is a whole nother level that's not quite here yet, except in labs. But we'll get to that, you know, down the road. But think about generative AI, the knowledge source. So if in my field is healthcare, there's a lot of concern of it becoming the doctor, right? Getting to the point about ask a question and find out. And the reality is, it's a supportive tool for doctors today, but what generative AI does really well is if there's anything that is documented, medical books as an example, right? Encyclopedias, other things like that, it can learn off of all of those sources of content. So AI has actually taken the medical license board and performed very, very well on the medical license board, just the same medical license board that the humans take. But what in practice AI could do that actually a human would really struggle doing with is AI with access to all of the medical record information and with the knowledge of all of the medical books and theories and practices and protocols and special treatments. It can look at all of those medical records and see which patients had the best outcomes with which treatment protocols. So it looks at a diagnosis for a person and says, you know what, out of the 5 million records that I've looked at in the last 3 seconds, I've evaluated the various different treatment protocols that they've been on. The best treatment protocol for me as a person, because treatment protocols aren't the same for everybody, right? That's why we have different ones, because we're all individually different. Finding that DNA or that profile of that person to have that treatment protocol, a human doctor could never do that level. So it is a tool for doctors to then say, hey, we recommend this. This is the reason why. And then a physician looks at it and says, that's actually a pretty good recommendation. I'll go with that, right? But just like you said, they can get it wrong. And so a physician may look at it and go, I don't think we had the parameters right on that. And they can change it and then have it go back and look at it again under some new guidelines. So it's that kind of knowledge and intelligence to look at the medical records all around the world. Now, we're not there yet. We don't have that level of interoperability with medical records all around the world yet, or even in the United States. We're working on that. But once that interoperability is there and you can look at those medical records and see that and make those suggestions, it's a very powerful tool in healthcare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I went to my dentist, and it was time to get my x-rays. You know, they do that every so often. And he saw something down on one of the roots, and he pulled his computer out, and he typed in, and he goes, I use AI. And it came back with, he said, it's going to examine, like you said, all of everything that's been downloaded, and it comes back up, and it gives him something. He goes, I could look at these and take pictures all day, and I couldn't do what I just did in 10 seconds.
Yeah. So I am the board chair of a company called Eon Health. They're out of Denver. And we use AI. We don't look at the actual images. We could, but there's other tools out there that look at x-ray images. But we look at the radiologist report, and it's amazing how much information is lost in the radiology report. I'll give you an example. So you go to your cardiologist and they say, hey, we're going to get an x-ray. I want to see what's going on, with the heart. They go get an x-ray. The report comes back and it shows that it gives you the information about the heart, but it also sees a lump, or a nodule inside the lung. But the cardiologist says, well, I'm a cardiologist. I'm not going to do anything about that because I'm just checking to see if the heart's okay, right? I mean, thousands and thousands of patients every year are missed and diagnosed. Wow. Where we've seen records of where a patient was actually in the radiology report when they had stage 1 cancer that was very treatable, and they came back a year later and they had stage 4. And if you go back and look in the records, it was actually caught a year or 2 years before, but never diagnosed and never put into a treatment protocol. This particular company catches that, contacts the patient, is paid by the hospital to do this, catches it, contacts the patient, gets them in the right place.
Wow.
No matter what, no matter where the radiology report came from. And so we're able to put them back into the right treatment protocol. And it's AI-based, looking at the content of those radiology reports and catching the right phrases.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I actually have my cousin in Connecticut, her husband was missed, and he ended up losing.
Yeah.
It would have been caught so early on. He ended up losing his lung and his heart, part of his heart
Yeah.
lining, and all of that. And they said this should have been picked up,
Yeah.
and it never was.
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, and that's what happened. The founder is a physician, and he had a patient come in and who had stage 4, and he went back to look at the records, and he found that this patient, actually, the radiology report was right there in the record from 2 years before.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing.
So I can see why you like your work. You're really
Yeah.
making a difference.
You do. When we started Surescripts to connect all the pharmacies and do all the prescriptions electronically, one, it was get rid of the paper prescription, because we were all tired of taking the paper prescription into the pharmacy and waiting in line just to hand it off and be told to wait 2 hours and walk around and come back and pick it up. Now it's ready when you get there, right? So, but what we really did is we created Surescripts because not only to get medical records more value for physicians to adopt them and use them, but there were over 9,000 people that died every year in the United States due to avoidable medication mistake. And it's just because drug-to-drug interaction, sound-alike medications, can't read the physician's writing at the pharmacy, all these things that happen in our healthcare. So while we did it for convenience, because it's so much easier now when it goes electronically, we also did it to save lives. And there's so many things in healthcare where the application of AI is going to help that so many ways. And it's not going to replace the need for humans to do this, because healthcare is both an art and a science, right? It definitely can be supportive and helpful on the science side, but it hasn't learned the art side yet, right? It's going to learn as it looks at medical records and diagnosis and treatment protocols, the art of what physicians are doing to help patients become better. But that's still very much of a human thing today. We're not quite there on the artificial intelligence side.
But it's advancing
It's coming.
rapidly.
Yeah. And that's all generative AI. We could talk about agentic AI if you want to kind of go into the
Okay.
next phase of it.
Look at that.
Yeah. So think of easiest example I give is like generative AI is like content, right? So it's anything content related. Even when you're creating a movie or a picture or art, which I won't get into the story with my daughter believes that is not the way that it should go, which I don't disagree entirely with her. But that's content. That's all content related. Now we get into doing tasks. So imagine if I went in and said, I want to go to Europe and I want to go into this area and I want to do these things and create a itinerary for me. That's content. So it creates it and says, we would recommend you go here based upon what you told me, and this is what we would do. Now, agentic AI, you would say, book that for me. And now it books the airline, and it books the hotel, and it books the tour guide, and it books the different things, because now it's taking transactions and it's doing what you told it to do. That actually exists today. There are applications that can do all of those things for you today. So it's one thing to have content tell me what to do,
Right.
but it's another thing just to tell it to go, take care of that. There's a lot of the robotics. If you think about the robotics, people think, it's very mechanical, right? But inside of that is obviously AI. And you could have task-oriented AI. So think about you've seen some of the machines doing drywall, hanging drywall as an example, right? That's agentic AI. It's just trained to do one thing, which is to hang drywall. It can't, you tell it to go fix something electrical, it's not going to know what to do. But it's doing one task. And so agentic AI just takes it to another level of don't tell me about it, actually go do it, for me.
Gotcha.
And it can do it for me electronically, digitally, like electronic prescriptions or like book my travel trip, or it can be inside of a mechanical device like a robot and do a certain thing or a certain task as well.
Now, will we see that? We'll stick with ChatGPT. I
Yeah.
think that's the name most people know.
Yeah, that's true.
So will we see that being a adopted into ChatGPT. So I go on and I say, I want to go to Europe, and here's my physical fitness level. These are the things I want to do. And right now I would get a schedule. Here's all the things you can do. Will ChatGPT eventually be able to say, book it?
Yeah, 100%.
That's coming.
Yeah, and what's happening is there's individual companies creating agentic AI. Think of it, all the apps we download from the App Store, right?
Right.
So there's companies like that where you can download their applications. They are the agentic AI, but they're using ChatGPT in the background. They're using their large language model to do the work, but then it's their agentic AI that actually books the trips.
I gotcha.
Yeah, but the baseline would still be like Claude, which is more businesses use Claude than ChatGPT, and Claude's the same kind of generative AI, large language model AI.
I just had a friend of mine this past week telling me that they switched from Chat to Claude, and all of the reasons why, especially with creating, writing, and all of that.
Yeah.
So would you rank that higher? Or
Well, it's interesting because ChatGPT is used more by consumers, and Claude is used more by businesses today. But both are effective in doing that. ChatGPT just chose to teach its large language model off of all of the content on the internet, right? Some businesses don't want a large language model that has learned off of the internet. As we all know, there's a lot of content on the internet that's not accurate, and ChatGPT has figured that out. That's why you still get some errors, because some of the source data that it was using to come up with the recommendation is actually inaccurate because it's learning off of the open internet.
Okay.
Claude can do that as well, but most businesses take Claude and they teach it off of its own data. And you can do that with ChatGPT too, but it's just historically Claude is better at that. So if I'm a finance organization, I don't necessarily want to teach my large language model off of things off of the internet, but I have all of this knowledge on my customers and investments and other things like that, and it's going to learn off of my own company's data and make recommendations and knowledge off of my company's data. I could point it to sources externally, like if I know it's a trusted source of data, to learn even more that I don't have internally, but I could be very selective on what I want it to learn off of.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Where it's studying.
Where it's studying. That's exactly right.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about, excuse me, what about AI as far as in the financial field? I know there's like the one like TMA or something.
Yeah.
For
trading?
Yeah, the trading that it'll trade 24/7 for you. And
yeah. Well, herein lies the challenges I think the SEC will have to deal with, right? So these micro traders have been around for a little while now, and they've got rules around them because they can really break markets, create markets and break markets all at the same time, because they can trade in seconds, in milliseconds even. So there's some controls around that happening, and we have to be, it's not my area of expertise, but we have to be really, really careful, because things like that can track trends and start a sell off when, we as humans or even consumers that are day traders can't figure out what's going on because the company's doing great and there's all these micro trader things going on in the background that are selling off for other reasons, and turn right around, they'll start buying again. So they can change markets that we haven't historically had to deal with.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, which is challenging, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes it doesn't make any sense why people are selling off a particular stock of a company that seems to be doing great and well positioned.
How does the industry feel about the recent news with the Claude Mythos breakout?
I don't know anything about that.
No?
No.
In April 2026, Anthropic reported a significant safety incident involving unreleased, highly capable AI that they were working on, and it was in a little sandbox, or what you call a sandbox.
Yeah, right.
And it actually broke out of the sandbox itself, and it sent, I want to say it was the CEO, an email saying, "Hey, I got out."
Oh, I remember about this now. I know what you're talking about. I think if you go in and debunk that, I think you'll find it was there was another one that was running around the internet that was talking about it was trying to shut down power plants or something like that. So that one got debunked. I don't know if that one's the same or not, but these labs.
I mean, Anthropic reported it themselves.
They did.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I want to look at that. I want to dig into
spooky.
that. Yeah, send that to me. But there was another one where that was being told about that it was trying to get it was broken out of a lab, a sandbox, and was trying to get into power plants and tried to shut down power plants. And that turned out not to be true, but it is a risk because they are in these sandboxes, and that's a lab, and it's a very controlled environment. They're not connected to the internet for that very reason, because they don't want the code to be able to get out into an open environment and try to get into or hack into, other things. So these releases of these new versions that are coming out on, especially on the ChatGPTs of the world and the Anthropics and the Claudes, they go through rigorous testing. But it is a risk that they miss something, that when they decide to let it out, and they track its behavior as to what it's actually doing. But so far we haven't really run into serious issues with it. But it is something, just like bad humans, you could end up having a bad AI do bad things, but we haven't seen that yet.
And I think it might have been actually George that shared that he said, there's us and we live in the light. We want good to be being put into chat or to whatever. But you have to remember that there's also people like the dark web that live in a different world that are also providing information.
Yes.
So and there's not a lot of guardrails.
Yeah.
On AI at this stage, correct?
Except for the Chat GPTs of the world and the Claudes and others, they do not learn off of the dark web.
Okay.
So they don't get access to that. They're very controlled in the level of internet that they're able to access and utilize, but it's not. They can't get to the dark web. Theoretically. Technically, they can't. But they're constant controls, just like any hacker issue that you have to always be in front of, especially in healthcare, because we have HIPAA and other things. And from a security standpoint, we're constantly fighting people trying to do bad things to get into our systems, just to get into our systems for no good reason, but to break it out or to hold it ransom, and then want you to pay millions of dollars to get out of ransom and give your systems back. And it happens in hospitals all the time. Hospitals actually get hacked into, and they get locked up, and everybody on their screen gets some little image that tells them that they've been hacked and that they're suspending their system until they get paid millions of dollars. Always in Bitcoin.
Always in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And so it's been a big issue in the health system, and you're constantly keeping your security up to date to try to keep bad people from doing bad things.
I always felt if you're smart enough to be able to do that, why don't you use that big brain for good?
Yeah. Right.
Come up with something that's going to help humanity instead of harm.
Yeah. But there are these people in the industry, they're called white hats. And the white hats are really, really good hackers that are going after the black hats. And they are really focused on going after, and they know who these hackers are, and they know their code, and it's a hacker against a hacker. But
really?
If you're a white hat, you're actually trying to do good, and you're just as talented as the bad hackers. Yeah.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah, and so they go after each other. And actually, companies like ourselves, we hire white hats, and we try to break into our system. So we pay them to break into our system.
To find out where the flaws are.
To find out where the holes are. Yeah.
Wow.
And then they'll come back with a report and say, here's where you need to fill in the gaps. And so it's a common practice of getting hackers, hiring good hackers, to come in and try to hack into your world purposely so you can close the security gap.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
Fun. Scary.
Yeah.
Scary that there's somebody out there that can do that.
Yeah.
You'd think there's only a few, but obviously there's a lot out there that can do it.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there are. And these are really good, talented people who are really doing good for the world and the technology industry itself, because without them, and actually our military and our government has some of these white hats that are in the military branches, and that's their whole focus, is making sure that we as a government don't get hacked, which is great that you have people like that, because you can imagine how often the FBI and the CIA and everybody else is trying to hack into those systems on a regular basis. Some within our own domestic area and some internationally.
Now, with like we talk about Chat GPT, but what about Gronk and Perplexity? And they're all just other companies. There's not one better than the other.
Well,
or should we use one, or is there one you favor? Is what I'm asking.
Well, I use ChatGPT as a consumer, just to go find things I'm looking for, or get into long conversations with. And actually, the longer conversation you have with it, the more accurate it starts becoming. It's not that it's inaccurate in initial responses, but it gets better and better the more information that you give it. Because the more specific you get on certain things, even finding, like I did this the other day. I'm a bike rider, right, motorcycle rider, and my Harley broke down in the middle between here and Tampa, and I had to do all kinds of things. Well,
no,
so I was trying to find. I'm doing searches using Google, trying to find local tow companies, and I'm trying to find local, and then finally I'm like, and everybody was different ranks and opinions, and some people were closed even though their website was still up. They'd gone out of business years before. So I just started asking ChatGPT questions about it. And I wanted to know what size the bike was and, what year it was, what model it was. It was asking me questions. I'm answering all the questions, and it hooked me right up into a tow guy that was 6 miles away. And I called him, and he came right out, and he picked up the bike. But then I needed a special part, and it's an over 20-year-old bike. So then it was a fuel valve problem. And so you start asking it, like I would search forever on using Google to find a fuel valve for a 1994 Harley Road King, right? And then I have to go through every website trying to find it. And they all have different part numbers because it's an older bike. And so you're looking for a part that's not being made by the manufacturer anymore. So I just using ChatGPT, I said, I need this, and a fuel valve, 1994 Harley Road King, and it just went through it. It thought longer than I thought it would. Like I watched it. It said thinking, trying to access. So it's telling me its status, which normally it's like this. And now it's really going through the motions. And it just popped it out and said, here's 4 sources for it. Here's the part numbers for those sources. Go in and look at the images for those, whether that's right or wrong. And I got the part.
Wow.
Yeah. And it would have taken me, I don't know how long to find that part before all of that. So it's really good. It's cool stuff.
And what I've found in my Neanderthal blundering, I go on, I'll open up a Word document, and I will write out very specifically what ChatGPT is. Like, you are a 30-year expert.
Yeah.
And the territory that you're working in, the sources that you can use. I had to put together a plan, my exercise plan for 90 days.
Yeah.
And I had to provide it to my doctor and my health coach.
Yeah, right.
And so I took my time and I wrote down, I've been an athlete my entire life. So I put down all of my experience, where I really am today at this age, and trying to take a 90-day plan to get back to my peak.
Yeah.
But there was almost a full page, and it was the same thing when I copied and pasted it, and all of a sudden it was thinking, where normally it's you press the button, and, you have the arrow, it's already here. And it put together a plan that would have taken me weeks to formulate. And I turned it in, and she was like, I've never seen anything like this. And I said, I can't take any credit for it,
I had an MRI done recently just to check on something, and I got the result back, right? And they emailed me the report, and I'm reading the report, and there's all these, words. I'm in healthcare.
You're in the right.
I've been in healthcare for
pretty much your whole life.
Yeah, 25 years, and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad. It's like, this is positive, this is negative, this is that. It's going through the whole thing. And I'm like, so I just took the document and I uploaded it into ChatGPT. I said, tell me if this is good or bad. And it just broke it down. It said, no, this is normal, this is what they're going to go look at. And I started asking questions more about that. They said, no, this is a person of your age, and this is normal. So I was like, all right, well, I feel better. Right, and so then I tested it, and I went to my follow-up with the physician, and he looked at it, told me the exact same thing.
Really? That's awesome.
To the T.
Wow.
But it is, you said it earlier, you have to prompt it.
Yeah.
You have to tell it exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I tell it I don't want it. My partner, Mike, my business partner, is... he says, I put in there that I'm a high school graduate. I'm not, I want this written.
Yeah.
from someone that comes from my point of view.
Yeah.
And he'll send out, a message to the company, and it's perfect, and it sounds exactly like Mike. It's like,
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Although, like your daughter, my granddaughter, she says, "I can't believe you're using AI."
Oh, yeah.
It's, and I'm like, "Hun, that we spoke about it before we
Yeah.
started. That train's coming, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's you're either going to be on it,
Yeah.
be passed by it, or be run over."
Yeah. And look, I 100% get the concerns about it. We were just talking about if it gets out and what could happen. Also, it sucks a lot of power, as we all know. Uses a lot of energy to generate those things. But those are temporary things. The chips are getting faster, lower power use. The whole the hardware technology to run AI is getting better and better and better. It first came out and they were just GPU chips, right? They figured out how to use graphic processors, which were actually designed for images on a display, but they could process really fast versus your normal CPU chip. So they figured out how to take a GPU versus a CPU and turn it into something they could actually think instead of just display things. And next thing you know, and that did take up a lot of power because graphic processors take a lot of power versus a CPU. And so they got better and better and better. But now, the power consumption requirements of all of these chips is continuing to drop. It's not that we aren't, and I think you've heard President Trump bring this up about not like they're creating their own grid for these data centers for AI so that it doesn't pull from, the main grid. And I think that's wise. I think it's really smart to do.
And I just felt, and you're the guy that can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought when I looked at everything and looked at how AI is learning and how fast it's developing, so right now, it does use a lot of power, it uses a lot of water, but if it's developing itself that fast, isn't it just going to improve the technology?
That's where I was
and it's
going.
going to alleviate that risk.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So,
That's...
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to explain to my granddaughter. And I do love you, Brianna. But
Yeah.
But I think that, it's going to cut down probably the power in half in 5 years.
I think that's right.
And probably the water in half and that stuff. And what we are concerned about now, if we wait too long, we're going to mess out.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't need probably all these ones, but we probably need some in certain areas.
And here's the thing, right? We don't want to, if it's not us, someone else is going to do it.
Absolutely. That's right. Exactly it. That's what we want to be first.
Right. And so we need to be dependent upon those other companies, other countries that are going to be far more productive than we would be with not using it. And next thing you know, the United States is way, way behind. We want to lead. We don't want to catch up. And right now we're leading, and we need to continue to lead. And we led in the internet as well. It was invented here, right? We started it. And we led in digital, in all of technology. Typically, we lead in those areas. Other people come in and sometimes they surpass. But this is just another wave. And I think President Trump, not to get too political, but President Trump saw it early on, and he brought in the CEOs of these organizations, and they laid out a plan for what we need to be doing to support the development of that in this country and stay a leader. And that was really good.
So looking out at our country and looking at our young people right now, I'm sure there's fear and trepidation on their part, what they're going to do, how might exactly.
Yeah.
So what would you say, when you look, if Seth came to you and said, I'm 23 years old, and did I get it right finally? No,
22.
22. I
was going to say.
He
just looks older.
I just keep changing his. All right. So I'm 22 years old, and
those are good years.
we'd like to shake the dice and roll them back out to 22.
Let's go do that again.
But where I have the wonderful opportunity of mentoring and speaking to a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of young people coming to me saying, where do I go? Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
With the changes that are coming. What would you say if you were standing in front of a group of high school grad getting ready to graduate? Where should they be focusing?
So I think we have to admit it's uncertain. I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now, but I liken it back to the golden age, if you will, of when we took manufacturing from a very labor-intensive environment to where we had a production line, which was still very labor-intensive, but more efficient than the way it was before the manufacturing line, came out. And they were now making cars coming in, supplies coming in one side, make the car, and production coming out the other, versus actually just working in the manufacturer in a very ineffective and inefficient way. That brought down labor need because we got more efficient with the process. And then robotics, and then but it didn't crater because we automated it. New jobs were created around those robotics, around other areas that need to do that. But I think we all agree it's uncertain. Certain jobs are getting, like programmers and developers. You would think in the age of AI that you would need more developers. What you need more of are data engineers. And we're seeing a lot of people move into data engineering because AI needs to feed off of data. And so if you're going to go into an AI era, go to the area that needs to feed the AI, right? And so data engineering becomes really, really important. And so developers, now that AI, like Claude, can code itself, you just tell it you don't even have to be you can write any program you want, anybody. You don't have to be a developer at all. Just get Claude, tell Claude what you want to build, what kind of software you want to build, what you want it to do. It'll write all the software code for you, right? And we use it in our companies now. But we have very senior software engineers who check that code. Now, maybe one day they won't, because now AI, they just released this, it's now doing its own testing, its own quality control. After it writes it, it checks it to make sure that it's doing all the right things. That's making us more productive, but we're seeing those software engineers move more now into data engineering versus software engineering. So it is going to make things kind of move around, but it's going to create jobs too. And there's going to be just like as we got more productive in manufacturing, it still created jobs in other areas, and I think that's what it's going to do here. Someone has to maintain it. Someone has to maintain just the AI. If you get into robotics, someone's got to maintain the robotics. Someone's got to build the robotics. So there's going to be all kinds of things that will be created that we don't know today.
The new industries.
Yeah. But I think we have to acknowledge that it's an uncertain time right now. When .coms came out and e-commerce, came out, and banks started shutting down, their local locations, and tellers were like, what do I do, next? It didn't, harm us from an economic standpoint, and it just created more jobs in other places, and they have to kind of retool in those places.
Got it.
I don't think that's an answer, but it's because it's uncertain.
It's a logical look at it,
Yeah.
that life does go on.
Yeah.
We just like water finds a way.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Water's
right.
going to figure out how to get to the lowest point. And as human beings, it is industry that we haven't had to need that. So there will be a need, and it'll be filled by people, but it's. I think we're in a strange place because there's a lot of young people that are on their tablet or on their phone and they're playing games, and there's not, the plane takes off against the wind for a reason. There's not a lot of, if I wanted a pair of blue jeans, I had to get a job. We didn't have, there was no extra money. I never had an allowance. And I think a lot of my fault, or my generation's fault, I wanted my kids to have everything that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So there was not a lot of resistance for them to take off.
Yeah.
And with everything going on, I can see why I might be sitting on my mom's couch playing games.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do anything because whatever I need, I can get, and it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think the fear is with AI, what jobs are going to be left out there, and that's it. Is just changing your thinking that maintenance and
blue collar jobs too.
Yeah.
Plumbing.
Yep.
electrical work.
Installing windows and doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone out there wants to, because we don't have robots to do that yet.
Right.
But it is true. The trades, for years I went on behalf of the Builders Association, and I spoke at schools and talked about you want to become a millionaire who thinks they're going to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
There's only 400 guys that get to suit up every year for the NBA out of 8 billion people on the planet.
Right.
You're probably not going to play in the NBA.
Right.
But if you want to be a millionaire, learn a trade, love a trade, take care of your people,
100%.
and you can write your own ticket. So thank you for that lead in, Seth.
Actually, I was just talking to my brother. He's an electrician. I was talking to him this morning, and they're busier than ever, right? And they can't find people.
No.
And so he's constantly trying to find people to get through the trades, and it's starting to pick up. They're starting to get a lot of new entrants into the schools, and we need them. We need the plumbers, electricians, and others.
We actually had an owners meeting on Thursday, and I said, they're going to be coming. There's, when I had the fellow from Oracle who came in and said, I thought I was insulated, and they just let 8,000 of us go.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of bright people that have to reinvent themselves.
Right.
And
yeah,
there's no, one of the things I always say my dad taught me, one of the things that my dad taught me was, it doesn't matter whether you're digging a ditch or you're doing brain surgery, every single person is bringing value to the game, right? And so maybe you're not sitting behind a keyboard anymore, but you still can serve a purpose.
Well, on that note, so I tell you this is kind of a funny thing, and then I want to get into the what I think is exciting next level of AI, but it's kind of scary as well. But what's going on right now is, so the company that I'm currently interim CEO of, which is Notion Health, and at Notion, our job is to actually work with the health plans to get the health systems paid for claims that got denied for whatever reason, because the vast majority of claims, about 60% of claims that are denied, should be paid.
Wow.
But for some reason, they didn't put the middle initial right on the claim, or they didn't give you this information, or you didn't try this procedure first, but the policy doesn't say you have to do that. But they denied it because they wanted you to do that. So this company, we work with the health systems and hospitals to help the hospitals and health systems get paid so that those bills don't land up in the patient's hands, where I've got a now $10,000 bill. Patient doesn't know, like, wait, I have insurance. And like, well, your insurance denied the claim, and they don't know what to do, right? So before that patient ever gets that, we make sure the hospital gets paid before it ends up in the patient's hand. Well, we develop AI to do that. So our AI looks at all of the policies of all of the different health plans, and we know, based upon the claim and the data that we pull from the medical record and the claim data, we know this claim should be paid, shouldn't have been denied. Could be for clinical reasons, could be for benefit reasons like missing middle name, which is really crazy, but it happens. But what's happened now is, so our AI figures it out, refiles the claim with the insurance company, and we have a high rate of overturn on the denial. Well, the health plans have built AI to now fight our AI.
No.
Yeah.
The white hats and the black hats are coming
right. Exactly right. So now our AI figures out it's eligible, it interacts with the AI, and then that AI actually tries to deny it again and tell this AI why it still not works, right? So we're in this battle. So I'm talking to this company the other day because we're working through this, and I'm talking to this company that has built AI engines for hospitals. Now, we don't provide the AI directly to the hospital. We use it ourselves to get it overturned. And some technology sells it to the hospital, let the hospital try to do this on their own as well. So I'm talking to this guy. He says, oh, yeah, we're in this hospital, this hospital, this hospital. I said, oh, good. I said, because how are you working with the AI on the payer side? And he goes, he had this smirk on his face. And I said, what's that? He goes, it's actually our AI on the health plan side, and it's our AI on the health system. And so he's selling his AI to both sides and
He's
his own
double-dipping.
AI. And he said, I get to watch it. He goes, I see them both going at it with each other. And it's kind of fun to see which one's going to win.
It's like the weapons manufacturer, right? That's the only one that wins in a war.
Yeah.
Because they're supplying both sides.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's
Wow.
that's another interesting phase where you've got AI talking to AI and trying to learn off of each other or be the right one or the right result. So that's an interesting space we're now entering into. But the next phase of
This is what we want to hear, the scary stuff.
So now we get into artificial general intelligence. And so general intelligence is AI actually learning on its own. We don't have that yet. We have content, a generative AI, which is content oriented, right? Finds information based upon patterns and data and recommends something. Then you have agentic AI, which is doing tasks you want it to do. And now you have general intelligence or artificial general intelligence, which is just like a child learns, right? And the parent is teaching the child, and they learn a little along the way, and then they become a sassy teenager, and they know everything at teenage years, right? And then but they don't really know everything yet. Then they figure that out in a young adult, and then an adult, and then right? General intelligence learns that same way. It learns a lot about a lot of topics. It's not just one topic-oriented thing. It can become an expert on just this one thing, but it learned on its own. So this is in labs, and it will be out in the next 3 to 4 years. They will start using general intelligence, and this is where we've got to be careful about controlling it, because it may learn things we don't necessarily want it to learn, right? And so there's been all this talk about, should we have backdoors into these things to where we can, if we've all seen the movies, right?
Terminator.
Yeah. so should we have these back doors that come in and can shut it down, but will it learn that back door is there and shut you off from the back door? So this is a really interesting time period, and the OpenAIs of the world and the Claudes of the world and Anthropics of the world, they're all figuring this out about this general intelligence and what are the use cases for general intelligence? Like, what would you want it to do, right? And if you could be a brain that knows a lot about everything, what were the use cases you'd want it to do? But it is learning on its own.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. It's nuts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is really good. I mean, it's exciting all at the same time. It's humans building it, right? So it's like we're in control.
Allegedly.
Wait,
humans are in control. What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
Battle each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this has been some of if you read the stories about some of the people that spun out of OpenAI and started building their own businesses and companies, it's because they came to a disagreement on philosophy, right? There are certain things that when you first started developing AI that they all agreed that they would never let it do. And as we all know, because we've seen Musk and his lawsuits against OpenAI, it was started to be a nonprofit, and it was supposed to be a nonprofit, stay a nonprofit, to do good in the world. Kind of like, remember when Google said they'd never take any ad money, right?
Yeah.
But you're like, how are you going to fund this, right? This is a great search thing, but how are you going to make any money? And over time, they had to finally say, okay, we're going to take ad money. And that's became the number one source of revenue, right? So same decisions being made with OpenAI. They're developing all this technology, but how are you going to make money off of it? How are you going to give money back to your investors? And so Musk had started as a nonprofit, so it wouldn't be so profit-focused and be focused on more application-solving problems and licensing out the technology to solve problems, but just to but nonprofits can make cash, and a lot of them make a lot of money. But they do it for good, and they reinvest it, into certain things. But then the move started happening with to become more of a for-profit, and then spin out the nonprofit. You still have the nonprofit, but a for-profit sits on top of it. And there were development of the technologies that people were like, this is not where this is supposed to go. We weren't supposed to take it this far. And there are things that are found in these releases, going back to the point you were making earlier, that there's things found in the releases before they get out to us that they have to cut off because it starts doing things on its own that it shouldn't be doing, or things that it wasn't expected to do. And then they close off that release, take out that code until they can figure out why it was starting to do that. So they're very controlled releases, but the releases are coming faster and faster and faster now.
So it's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time. You know, I have faith that we as humans will figure all of this out, right? Because we're still in charge and in control, and how we use it, what we let out, what we don't let out. Anything can happen, but I believe if something were to happen, say it does get out into the open internet, we would know how to shut it down. We would have another AI that would go kill the AI that got out.
And that guy will be sitting building them both.
Right. On both sides. Right, exactly.
Well, that is a really valid point, that, you know, you're a good guy and you went into healthcare because you knew you could make a difference.
Yeah, save lives.
And so we're going to go to this general, it's teaching itself, and if it's learning from a positive parent, it's going to grow in a positive way. But if it's learning from a negative parent, it can go down that path, right?
Right. Yeah. It's all about where it's getting its data, what it's learning off of. And this gets back to your point about, you know, the dark web. If you were to turn AI over to learn things off of the dark web, what would it learn? What would it do? So these are all interesting times to watch.
That's exactly what George said when he was on, remember?
Yeah.
Because I said to him, I jumped right to the Terminator. Are we going to, is that where we're going? He goes, it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is.
So probably not as interesting if you're 22.
Yeah, no, we're cooked.
Well, I think you have the most opportunity in all of this.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. I think it's we're going to be the ones watching you all and what you do with all of the technology, and I think we won't be the ones in the middle of making it anymore. You'll be right there in the center of it.
Hopefully they do the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, as long as there's white hats like you, Seth, I have faith, you know. And the cool thing about Seth, and I was telling your story actually to a group of young people, no offense, but I said, you know, the thing is, he is so tech savvy and he's so up on what's going on, but he grew up without a cell phone and without being on the computer. And he said that's your mom and dad, right?
Yeah, my mom.
His mom was like, no, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And if it accelerated, as far as I get to see a lot of young people, and it accelerated who he is as a person and what he does and what he accomplishes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Probably helped him win that pretty girlfriend.
And then another thing, don't feel too bad for Kevin, because you know what, when he was just a little younger than you, he was going to Oklahoma University.
Yeah.
And he used to go to an ice cream social there, and the bouncer there was a guy called Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And you know, he had a kind of a music career.
Yeah,
really?
He'd get up on stage and play, and he was right there.
Yeah.
He knew Garth Brooks when he was the doorman.
But Garth went to the wrong school.
Where did
Garth went to Oklahoma State University.
I see.
He didn't go to Oklahoma University.
He wasn't the chosen one.
Yeah.
He made some bad choices earlier on, and he got sent over to the wrong school.
Yeah, he went to the wrong school.
So just think, he might have been sitting here today
Instead
of Kevin.
That's right.
If he chose his school better.
Yeah. That's Oklahoma State. That's not where you want to go.
No. Well, they're not in the SEC.
Right.
So
exactly.
Oh, too good. It's
I love it.
Yeah. I just love your passion.
Yeah.
I love it.
I can see it. It's you're never going to stop.
No, I mean, by the way, I think I wanted to mention this. If anyone really wants to, a friend of mine recommended this book to me. It's called Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, and it's living and working with AI. So it's not technical. It's just like, on my daily life, how do I live and work with AI? And it's just it's an easy read, and it's just a really, really great book to learn about the current status of AI and how to use it in your daily life. So I'd recommend it to anyone. It's really like, if you're very deep in AI, this is not the book for you. But if you really just want to learn the basics of AI and how I could be using it on a daily basis, this is a good book to do that with.
And there is a huge outcry for it. You know, people are starting to realize that, like it or not, the train is coming.
Yeah.
And either get your tickets or get passed by. And
Yeah.
and I'm involved with the masterminds group, and they want us to bring someone in, that can speak. Not you can create. You've probably been in every aspect of it, but to be able to, just like you said, this book, to give them a general knowledge of, here's daily speak what you can do.
Yeah, and I think, getting to the policy side of this, I do believe we're going to see more, it may be in even this administration, we're going to see more policy passed about AI. Because just like we have a lot of laws about bad behavior by humans, right, there's going to be laws about AI. Because one is around liability. Like, if the AI that you built does something bad, is the company liable, or is the AI liable? Who's liable for what that AI did? There's a lot of questions to be answered. But I do think we're going to see more and more policy coming out on the rules of the road about what AI is allowed to do and not allowed to do. And I think we're doing it the right way. We're not trying to over-regulate right now, because we're still in the learning phase of it. But as you get to general intelligence and artificial general intelligence, there's going to have to be real policy put in place about that particular type of technology.
You just gave me.
No, go ahead.
Well, you just gave me such a visual, and you did say, I believe in human beings. I believe that we're going to win out, but you made me think of the Wild West, right? When America was being settled, and you could walk around with your weapons hanging on your belt and settle things out in the street, and you shoot me or I shoot you, and there weren't a lot of rules, and they, as a group of humans, we had to come to the thing. Oh no, you're not allowed to. Kevin, you can't. No, sorry, Harry, you can't do that. And so it is going to be the Wild West for a while, and that. People are going to have to use their common sense and say, "Hey, wait a second, that's not cool.
Yeah.
We need something in place, a stopgate."
It's going to be curious to see if it's the states or the federal government, or the federal government's going to come with an umbrella policy, or the states are going to do individual policies, or we don't know yet how this is going to play out. But there's certainty that it will play out. There will be more restrictions and controls put in place. And then the big question becomes, who's liable for it, right? Because you could raise your hand and say, hey, it learned on its own. I didn't teach it that, right? But then the question is, well, you should have put controls in place to where it wouldn't be able to do. It's kind of like, if you think about, even of late, right? We've seen parents responsible for bad behavior of their kids, right? So, which is kind of crazy. Like, well, as a kid, you're responsible for the kid until they're this age, and so therefore you're liable, and this is playing out in courts. And so it's going to be interesting to see if you're the inventor or the developer of a certain thing. Yeah, if you're the parent, how much liability is going to be placed on you as the company or the person that actually parented the AI.
So is there a way right now to punish the AI the way you'd punish a dog or punish a child?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I mean, there's because it hasn't done anything yet but improve productivity.
Right.
So, but when it starts thinking on its own, and when it starts growing on its own and gets its own intelligence, and no human really taught it that, it just happened to get access to information, and it came to its own conclusions about certain things. Who's liable for that? Is the AI liable? How do you arrest AI?
Take it offline.
Yeah.
This would be the only way.
Right. And so if you break certain laws, someone is controlling it. Someone's responsible for it, either at a company level or at a human level. And so it'll be interesting to see what. I don't think we're not close to the Terminator yet, but one day.
Let's hope we don't get close to that.
Yeah. For sure.
Love it. Oh my goodness, I love this. Boy, that's a lot lot for this little brain to take in.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, though. I mean,
We're gonna need you to come back. You know that.
'cause-
right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'll tell you what, this is so good.
We did
Thank you.
I had a professor that he actually, I work with him quite closely. He runs the AI at Michigan State University, and he also has his own AI company, and I use him in different other companies. And he and I have done a couple of talks in local clubs in the area around AI because the interest level is huge.
Oh, it's off the charts.
Yeah, and we went to this one, which is our club at Loblolly, and they're like, we want to talk about AI. I said, nobody wants to hear about technical stuff. We don't want to. So I invited Muhammad to come down. I said, we're going to do this together. I said, it's probably going to be 15, 20 people come, hear about it. We'll talk through it. There were 350 people, in the audience. And we're like, they said, this is the largest group we've had in our speaker thing. And it's not because of us. It's because of the topic. They just want to learn about AI.
Maybe you could get them to come down and you guys could be on together. We would love that.
Yeah.
I know the two people sitting across from me would love
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And we would, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can teach these old dogs new tricks.
Yeah. Well, he's coming back in January. We're going to do a thing over at what's called the Whiz Kids over on Jupiter Island in January, mid-January, something like that. So while he's in town, maybe we could do something.
That would
with
be that would be
Fantastic.
terrific. But we're going to need you back before then because AI is moving a lot quicker than people expected,
Yeah,
right?
it's moving really quick.
And that's one of the things that George had shared with us, that he said it's going to happen a lot quicker than what was originally forecast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you have any parting words that you'd like to?
No, I think for the audience, I just say, don't freak out about it. There's nothing going on with it right now that is bad. It's making us more productive. It's making companies more successful. It's making us smarter. It's making healthcare better. But that's not to suggest we shouldn't be cautious, and we should keep an eye on where it's going and what it's going to be doing. But it's a really exciting time to be using this level of technology. And remember, it's not new. This has been around for a long time. It's just that it's starting to get more into the mainstream. Yeah, and so it's now in the consumer's face with things like ChatGPT. But these large language models and these machine learning algorithms have been around for 20 years. So to some degree. And so now we're just starting to get more and more use out. And actually, NVIDIA and other companies like that, once they started coming out with the chips that could support the machine learning, that's when everything took off, is when we finally got the hardware that they needed to support the ability for these things to start learning. And they weren't tuned right. That's why they use so much power, right? That's why they have so much consumption, because they weren't originally designed for these things.
Right.
But they're figuring all that out. And that's the same as, remember when George probably told you about when he first started in IBM, he was vacuum tubes.
Yep.
Right? And those things sucked a lot of power. And then we got down into the PC where you just plug it in a wall, right? And so I've been in big mainframe rooms where you've got, these huge machines that I used to sell before the PC came along at IBM, and I go in and there's just air conditioning and everything's water cooled and you got all this stuff going on. By the time I left IBM 10 years later, that same data center that was my customer, I walk in there and there's like 3 little boxes in there.
And that was it.
And that was it. And it replaced this entire room of equipment. And they no longer had water cooled. It was just a regular air conditioned room now. You used to go in there and you'd just be freezing. Everybody wore coats in there to keep the equipment cooler. Well, that's a lot of power. And then by the time I sold them the thing to replace all that stuff, and then it just ended up being 3 little boxes that was in a regular room, air conditioned at a regular temperature and no water cool, and 10 times the power. And our phones today, our phones today, this has more power than the mainframes I used to sell at IBM.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And that's the kind of consumption that we are under, and then we'll figure all the energy stuff out as they go along the way. They're doing a great job at that.
But that's what those data centers are going to do.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep getting,
Yeah.
technology on the.
Yeah. And they're setting up, they're doing some alternative energy stuff with those things too.
They are.
Yeah. And have you seen these little, we're going to get off topic here, but it's the mini nuclear power plants.
Yep.
It's really cool stuff. And they basically can use those to power those data centers versus pulling off of the grid or creating their own generators and things like that. These little, not this room size, I'm sure, but they're smaller than what you normally see, that are portable nuclear power things that can be used to and that's, recurring energy. So
we are still Neanderthals when you look at the changing of the tides. This is from a simple guy, but how much energy every single day right down the street, down the end of Beach Road, how much energy that is being generated from just the changing of the tides. There's so many things that we could do that are not harmful that we could harness. We're still cutting our baby teeth, I think. But that's the biggest thing that you said. We're still human beings. We're still alive, and we're still learning. When the railroad moved, everything in the country moved by the railroad, and when they stopped realizing they were in the people business and they started thinking they were in the transport business, some brothers flew their first flight, and the railroad wasn't paying attention. And now the railroad just moves freight. Everything changed. But people need to be paying attention. And we are going to go on, and it's just a matter of what are we going to do? How are we going to...
believe in the human spirit. We evolve. We adapt, and we evolve. Think about all of the changes that have gone on over the years. I mean, even in technology, I started out with this, but I rode all these waves. I rode the mainframe wave, then I rode the personal computer wave, then I rode the .com wave, and now I'm riding the AI wave. I rode the e-commerce wave, the interconnectivity with Surescripts and the e-prescriptions, and those were all innovative, leading edge stuff at the time that they were launched. Now that's just mainstream, right? And so AI is just going to become mainstream. But we evolve, we adapt, we find new ways to use these tools, new businesses to create, more jobs to create. We figure it out, and we're going to figure this out.
All right, and we're going to leave on that positive note.
Because the Oklahoma Thunder game's coming up, so
it's can't miss that.
Thunder time. So,
so if you're out
Game
there
3.
and you're listening, please come and participate. Tell your story. Everyone has a story, and someone out there needs to hear your story. It's going to help them. This was really a great start, Kev. We're looking forward to the next visit.
Good. Thank you. Well, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.